What's up? Welcome to another episode of Where I'm From Podcast with your girl, B.MARIE. Tonight's episode's guests are Pepper Joy and Rev PJ. They have been on previous episodes with me. Make sure y'all like, subscribe, and share, and hit that notification bell so you can be alerted whenever new episodes come out. Okay, so Pepper and Rev PJ, the founders of the Inside Out Experience, a community of trauma-informed life coaches who assist others in transforming trauma, healing the mind, nurturing the body, and restoring the soul. Tonight, we're going to have a conversation about decriminalizing sex work. And yeah, we're just going to dive right deep. I chose this topic because I wanted to talk and start the conversation and join the conversation about decriminalizing sex work because I have my own lived experience to where I was in a lifestyle of prostitution. I've talked on many videos about it. Tonight's episode is going to be a little bit more digging deep, more transparent into some of my experiences that I actually probably never talked about this one. I might have brushed through it, but I've never talked about this one in depth. And also, Pepper and Rev are going to get their expertise and experience on decriminalizing sex work. So we're just going to jump right in. So go ahead, what y'all got to say?
Yeah.
Pass the mic to you.
Thanks for having us, first of all. We love hanging out with you. So this is a wonderful opportunity. And also for letting us be part of your platform and share this, what I believe is really important information, because you come from the sex work side and I actually come from the trafficking side. And it's my belief that if we were to decriminalize sex work, it would be the number one way to combat human trafficking. And so that's what I'm bringing today, just kind of like what that looks like. And then we have Rev PJ to kind of share the male perspective on it. So do you want to share anything before we get started?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So you want me to just jump right in with the presentation I brought today?
Yes.
There we go. Okay.
So I'm
this
one too. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm pretty excited to learn.
Excellent. So you can see the screen. It's got the first presentation, decriminalizing sex. Okay. So I consider this a path to justice and safety, but also it's the number one way to combat human trafficking. And we're going to get into why. So countries that have decriminalized sex work, such as New Zealand, have seen positive outcomes for sex workers, including improved safety and better access to support systems. And this decriminalizing allows sex workers to report abuse and trafficking, which this is something you kind of speak to in your story about how the police weren't helpful and actually even harmful in your case. And I have a very similar one, and I'll share a little bit more about that as we go through this. So creating an environment where victims of human trafficking are more likely to come forward is part of what empowers this fight against human trafficking, because it then takes sex workers and it helps them be safe to become allies in this fight, right? And it's not just about human rights for sex workers. It's one of the most effective tools to combat human trafficking and reduce violence. And by the way, sex work is one of the oldest professions in the history of mankind. So it's not going anywhere. It's been around. Three things I want to focus on today are going to be what is sex work versus human trafficking, why decriminalization versus legalization, and benefits and solutions. So this is the piece that I know you're excited about because it's one thing to educate and talk about it, but then what do we do with that? So we're going to give some ideas on action steps today. So sex work versus human trafficking. Sex work is a consensual exchange of sexual services for money or goods, whereas human trafficking involves these three words: force, fraud, and coercion. And the interesting thing, I guess not interesting, but this is how you know police in these cases can be harmful, because they are not, it's not illegal for them rather to actually use these things when they're interviewing you. And we see a lot of times the re-victimization of both sex workers and trafficking victims, because they don't maybe know the name of their pimp. They don't know who's actually trafficking them, or whoever they know is someone who is so low in the game that they're not who the investigator's really after. And this causes a complicated healing situation. This causes that complex PTSD for trafficking survivors and sex workers alike. So legalization versus decriminalization. And the quickest example I can give of this is if you look in Denver, Colorado, they legalized cannabis in Colorado. It's now legalized for recreational use as well as medical use. And what you see is there is a plant being legislated. It's being they're keeping tabs on it. They're telling you how much you can grow, how you can grow it, what pesticides are allowed, what's not. And you can see where that can go good and also perhaps negative. And then you look at the psilocybin space, so mushrooms. And in Denver, they decriminalize mushrooms. So you have mushrooms of all manner and variety and customization that people can partake of in Denver. Now you can't sell any of that. But you can distribute with amongst your friends, you can share. And so those are, and when I think about the human body, I don't want my body to be legalized. I want it decriminalized, right?
Yeah.
And so decriminalization also sets sex workers up to have independent businesses. It creates space for unions. Now they can take care of each other in a union space. It also takes it off the black market and makes it something that is contributing to society. Now you can pay your taxes. Now you can actually have credit. Now you can actually live a better life than however you started, right? So those are some things to talk about. Go ahead.
Okay. I jump in, right? Can you go back to the slide right before this with the sex work and human trafficking? Okay. So I just wanted to touch on, if that's okay, I just want to touch on this here. I didn't think I was going to jump in, but I was like trying to write down questions, but I want to just make this comment on that.
Yeah.
So the consensual exchange of sexual goods for money or goods, and then the human trafficking involves force, fraud, and coercion. So where I grew up at, in just the circle of other working girls, other females that were in the sex work, a lot of them had pimps. Like I didn't have a pimp. My pimp situation was a little different. But what I know about having pimps, there is a lot of force, fraud. They lie to you, they coerce you into it. So a lot of times, like a lot of us don't know that human trafficking looks like all different types of ways. Like it's not just what they show on TV, like with Mexican people or just foreigners or something like that. It's in the inner cities as well. Like, and they're looking like me and other people, and the pimps are coercing them and taking their money. And the point that I wanted to make with that is that I feel like that if it was decriminalized, like you just said, they would be able to have their own businesses. The women would feel empowered to not have a pimp and to make their own money. And when they come to these bars and these hotel rooms and they do these things to where they act like they're men and women who want to pay for sex, that when they arrest the woman, they have the girl in the room. I've experienced where they've asked me questions about the pimp, things like that. If we trusted them more because they wouldn't make us feel like criminals, then we could tell them, or we could not have a pimp at all and just have our own stuff going on, like how you said. Exactly. So it would be less violence in the industry for me, because a lot of the pimps, I don't know no pimp that ain't was violent to their women at one point or another, or just even the act of them having sex and paying you. Like it's a lot of shame. If it's decriminalized and the woman is empowered to have her own, she would have less shame and guilt. And less addiction as well. So that's, it actually does. It would work better.
You can see the systemic effect that it would have to decriminalize sex work and how it would make a lot of things more accessible. And it also would allow, like you said, that independence for people to have, you can have your own business safely. You don't have to rely on a criminal or someone who has ill will for you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what I wanted to make on that point. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, I love it.
Good
I love
stuff, good stuff.
All right. So moving along. So legalization versus decriminalization, regulation and control by the government, which undermines bodily autonomy and rights. It's a very slippery slope. Decriminalization, as we said, removal of criminal penalties without regulation. It improves bodily autonomy and it lowers domestic violence. So there's actually studies about this where it does lower domestic violence and what we call survival crimes. So survival crimes are going to look like theft of food or resources. And so that gets, and sometimes if you're in the industry, then you are forced to also deal in the space of drugs. And so that becomes a part of the complications that would actually be addressed in the decriminalization of sex work.
Yeah.
So moving on, impact on trafficking victims. So the harm of criminalization, it's a fact that trafficking victims often get charged with survival crimes, like we said, theft, drugs. What I have seen with several clients that have been trafficking victims is when they've gone in to be interviewed, then they were told, if you can't provide us this name, then you will be charged with these crimes. That
happens to me. Right? I'm sorry, you got me a little, because that happened to me. Go ahead. I'm sorry. When you finish, I'm gonna tell you that.
Well, and it's why is that? Why is it if they can't get the big fish that they're going to punish the one that came to them for help, or the one that they caught in a space that needed to be rescued from, even if they had chosen to be there in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the problem is police fail to target real criminals.
Because we have a legal system and not a justice system.
Right. A legal system, not a justice system.
Yeah, and I think in these situations, like, for example, I was in a bar in Las Vegas, and I was an adult at that time. And I was there with a guy, not in that bar, but I was in Las Vegas, with a guy that I brought from New Jersey down there with me. And they just assumed that because I was a prostitute that I had a pimp. So they were asking me questions like, and they've done that to other girls that I know. If you have somebody's name tattooed on you, they harass you about that. And I feel like they should spend the time trying to like I've never had one police officer ever say anything to me about reform, like anything like doing something different. I never had a person talk to me about that until I went to the program that I went to after I couldn't get out of jail no more. It was in times they were done with me. So, and I have felonies because of prostitution and everything. Like I have felonies, like where they real prison time for prostitution. And I say now, fortunately, I was caught as well. Because if I wasn't, I wouldn't have been able to go to a program probably.
Sure.
Probably just would have sent me to prison for prostitution. That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. When you say survival crimes, you mean like when if it's a minor who's forced, or not even a minor, like an adult who's forced into it,
right?
They are stealing for the person that human trafficked them, and they and that's the first time I heard of survival crimes, because I felt like prostitution was a survival crime for me because that's what I did to take care of myself from when I was 16. Right now, it became learned behavior after a while, and that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother video for me, in my opinion, because I was choosing that. And I do think I didn't have a lot of people to teach me something different. But I mean, I kind of knew something different was out there, but I had learned helplessness not to believe that I could do something different. Right. But I wasn't forced into it.
That brings up a good point, because when you think about survival crimes, what puts somebody in a position that they wind up trafficked and or deciding that sex work is what they want to do with their life. You know, and first, before we go even any further, I really want to combat the shame around this topic, because sex is a human behavior. And if it's between two consenting adults, then it's really nobody's business outside of that, how that happens, right? The rest of the story is when it's happening to victims, when it is perpetrated harm. And then we've created this system, the legal system, not the justice system, that systemically continues to not only ignore the harm, but then perpetuate it further using the very 3 words that make it trafficking. They can force you, they can coerce you, they can treat you fraudulently to get some kind of a confession, you know, and from their perspective, it's doing a little harm to hopefully get this big fish. But what it ends up doing is creating a much bigger ripple. And then people feel like they have to go back to that trauma, that thing that they know how to do, even if they don't want to do it anymore, but it's what they know how to do, right? And so why should you be criminalized for something that, like you said, for you, it was, at one point it became learned behavior. So yes, it was absolutely trafficking while you were underage. It was harm. It was criminal. But once you became an adult and this was now your learned behavior, well, that's how a lot of people wind up in this work, because they have decided, like, this is what I know. I know how to make money at this. And even if it's unsafe, right? And that's not something, like, we don't need to get all moral police about it, because the truth is, it's like, that's their choice. It is their body. And now for some of them, for some that I've had report back to me, it felt like taking their power back, because now they were doing it on their own, in their own strength, in their own time, in their own way. And it was actually very empowering for them.
Yeah.
And I just find it really hard to believe that we should criminalize somebody who took a really horrible thing that happened to them and is now using it to make a living without furthering the harm.
Yeah, so that's what I feel like I did. My mom passed away, and I had to take care of myself. And these were people that were around me. And there were many times I can remember feeling like, even if I was raising DeAndre in like a toxic environment, as far as, you know, that being my job and other things that came along with that, because it's criminal, and like I was going to jail and stuff like that. So because decriminalize it, like, you won't take me away from my kids,
right?
So it could be a different outcome. But I just felt like I was doing it because I had to do it. Like, that's what was presented to me when I had to live on my own, and I felt really good about being able to always take care of myself. Except from the time when I was incarcerated, I always took care of myself since I was 16, about to be 16 years old, and I'm 42. I always take care of myself. So I've never had someone take. So it's like, it feels good to be able to do that. Yeah. And I was able to do that in that work. And I learned a lot of things in that life that I bring into my life now, into the business life.
Right.
So, okay. That's all I gotta say about that.
No, it's all great points. And it's so important for people to hear the perspective from the lived experience, because it's not all this, like you said, it's not all Hollywood. It's not all the Las Vegas Strip, you know, that might be there, but that's not what it is for everybody a lot of times, actually.
Yeah. Speaking of Las Vegas, they have those, I don't know if they still have them, because I haven't really looked too much into this in years, but before, I know they had the where it's legal in Vegas, but you would have to not have a criminal record and go down to the police station and file for like a card that you can work in the city. Right. And then they have the buildings, like, where people come there, and there's like a whole bunch of sex workers, and they have like a safe environment for them there, a private place.
And that's an example of legalization.
Yeah, and that's legal.
Right.
So, and it's safer. It's like in a controlled environment where, like, somebody's most likely not gonna get murdered.
Right.
Or something like that.
Perhaps, but there, you know, within that legalization, there's also room for trafficking.
That's true, because you can be trafficked by the system. So that's why the decrim
Not just the
is the
system. You
focus.
could be trafficked by the business owner.
That's true. Yeah.
They're
I
holding
consider
your
that.
passport. They're holding your, your
Right.
family back where you came from,
Right.
or worse.
And
know?
those,
Have
yes,
to stay here. I didn't ever think about that.
right.
You have to stay at that place.
They can't leave. They got to work there.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think about that. That's right.
So that
They made
just,
a
I mean,
whole-
that just shows further why we're looking at the decrim versus the legalization, right?
Yeah.
And this is like, why would you think about that? You know, who
Exactly.
you think about, most people think sex work and they think, oh, dirty, dark, like don't talk about it, or,
In the alley on Skid Row.
right. Right.
Yeah.
So something I want to advocate for, there's a couple of things that I think could be solutions to how we get there. And I'm going to call on that example from psilocybin in Denver. What they did was this: a signature campaign and ballot measure. So if you really want to affect change, it's true that at the local level is where you want to start. Local legislation is much easier to shift and change than a broader audience like the state or the nation. So Denver, Colorado got the attention of the nation and perhaps even the world when they did a signature campaign and ballot measure to get psilocybin decriminalized. And it was, essentially you get like so many thousands of verifiable signatures. So you'll need their like phone number, address, things like that. And it needs to be from registered voters. And it allows voters to directly decide whether consensual adult sex work should be decriminalized. And a lot of people,
I'm sorry, Pepper. Let's just touch on what psilocybin is.
Yes, so that's mushrooms.
Psychoactive mushrooms.
Oh, yes. I'm like, I feel like I heard this before.
Fair.
I've actually heard that a few times. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so remember, okay. Mm-hmm.
So as you know, with enough signatures, the measure will be put to public vote. And then this gives the communities and the power to enact legal reform. So this gives the power back to the people. You do it through a signature ballot measure, which is, by the way, allowing people to practice that autonomy that we want to also give to sex workers, right?
Mm-hmm.
1 second.
Okay.
Every municipality doesn't have this mechanism of a ballot measure.
That's true.
That's one of the things I loved about living in Colorado was, we could just not wait for our politicians to enact our will.
Right.
We could do campaign like the last slide showed, and next thing you know, it's in the public forum. But that being said, there are paths toward that don't involve a ballot measure. Like where we live now, there's no such mechanism.
True. So this is one example of ways that we believe we can make it happen.
So research your local government and figure out your own path there.
Yeah.
So I have a few examples too, but I'm gonna do mine like after I do my story.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you go ahead. I have a few solutions that I'll chime in with later.
Okay. Yes, please do, because there's more than one way to do this, and there's more than one way to address this. And I very much believe if you have that lived experience, you have perspective that the general public's not going to have, or it's even different from a trafficking perspective that also supports that, helping them and being an ally to them.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
So I want to talk about why I think this could work. Why do I think we could actually make this happen? And so the ACLU, as well as the National Center for Transgender Equality, and 22 other United States-based human rights organizations find that 52% of Americans and 2/3 of voters ages 18 to 44 support the idea of decriminalizing sex work. So this is not something, it's not as taboo as we want to say it is. It's actually a very popular idea. And what it proves is if they can get this information to show this many people would agree with that, then what I'm hearing or what I'm seeing is we're not listening to the people.
We never.
We're not having our heard. So we're not actually being represented, which is all the more reason why I want to encourage anybody watching this, get involved, talk about this topic, do some research about it. We've got some great facts here today, and I'm happy to send more information out. But I feel like when we start to look at this as a bigger thing, it's not just like we're going to decriminalize this thing that's taboo. This change a lot and make, like I said before, make a lot of things accessible and create resources for people.
Yes.
So, and then of course, the on combating human trafficking, decriminalizing consensual adult sex work helps law enforcement focus on real crimes, right? Because two consenting adults having sex, even though there was this exchange of money, should not be criminalized. You know, it's the traffickers that should be criminalized. And and if it was safe for you to go to the police, then you would become, again, an ally in the space of trafficking, because now you're going to see like, hey, I know that girl is in trouble, or I know that kid is underage. And you won't be scared to report it. You won't have to look the other way for your own safety, right? Which is what it stands for.
Yeah.
So lowering domestic violence, here's another piece. They've done studies, and where they have decriminalized the sex work, it empowers sex workers to report violence, and they have access to legal protections. And that leads to safer communities and reducing those rates, as well as survival crimes like theft, right?
Decriminalizing empowers sex workers to report. I'm sorry, I was reading it.
Sorry, let me go back. Okay.
I was trying to reread it. Decriminalizing empowers sex workers to report violence and access legal protections, leading to safer communities and reducing domestic violence rates, as well as survival crimes like theft. Yeah, I agree.
Yep. So that's another system this would affect. It's not just affecting sex work, it's affecting the trafficking space, it's affecting domestic violence. And then there's another piece that you'll find interesting. Studies show that STD rates drop when sex work has been decriminalized. Think about the access to healthcare for women and for sex workers if this is decriminalized.
You said that better access to healthcare?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So then they would be, more willing, I guess, to go to the doctors and stuff like that.
Right. They'd be safer to go. They'd be more willing to go. They would get treatment early on. They wouldn't wait until an infection got bad or until a wound got bad. They would be able to have access early on, and that would also improve healthcare for the individuals, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And then it also increases autonomy. So respecting bodily autonomy allows individuals to make decisions about their own lives without the fear of criminalization. It helping to reduce stigma and improve legal rights. So your voice is heard, right? The power goes back to the people if we decriminalize sex work.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to have a pimp.
Right.
I know everybody does not have that choice. But I wasn't into it. I just never was into it because, fortunately for me, I had the choice. I just kept my head down and just, did my thing, and I just stayed out the way a little bit. So, but I mean, I actually had people that were in the game, were very close to me, that made sure that I could work without having a pimp. I'm really grateful for that, because I watched like so much one with people that have pimps. Like I watched so much one, like them fighting. It just was super crazy toxic, and it just was a mess. And I know of just a couple situations where they actually would work with the police on having that person arrested and put away for a long time. But for the most part, they were never going to do that. They were never ever going to do that.
It's a dangerous thing to ask somebody to do.
Yeah, they never were going to do that. So, they harass the girls. Like, and I've seen a couple articles where I read, like, where it was like little girls, like 11, 12 years old, in the courthouse shackled. Like, and the judge was like, can you take those handcuffs and stuff off this child? So
Right.
like there are some people, but it's like a lot of times the police just, I don't know, they just not, maybe they're not trained or something in this area. Like what would need to happen? Like we would have to like get them to be trained or something in this, like what would have to happen?
Well, I will start, and then I think this is a good one for you. I mean, when you decriminalize something as major as sex work, I mean, if you know anything about the porn industry, it's a $1 billion industry, and
Yeah.
that would almost collapse in a way, in all the best ways, actually, if we decriminalize sex work. But then if you follow the money, and this is where it gets hairy, and you have to really be smart and strategic to do this safely anyways, is that if you follow the money and you look at like who's paying for porn, who's creating for the porn to be, or who's creating the porn and who is paying them to do that, and how are they getting these actors, actresses? Some of them are legitimate, but oftentimes they're not. So there's this underground black market disturbance that would happen.
A lot of trafficking in the porn industry. It would also expose all the corruption, because think about it like this. You have a little black book of clients, and suddenly this is decriminalized. There's nothing holding you back from opening that little black book and being like, look at these names, right? So I can see where, like, if you're someone who is a buyer and you don't want that to get out in the world, decriminalizing or even legalizing might make you nervous.
Okay.
But if this is not a stigmatized thing, if this is not a criminal thing, then also what do you really have to worry about unless there's a reason why this would make you criminal or tie you to criminal action?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Maybe, yeah. The people who I said, though, sometimes they worried about their families too, knowing. They don't want
Right.
their families to know. And
Right.
when you watch the videos of when they do these things on the girls, I don't know if they still play those type of videos. And they like when the guys are coming, especially when it's underage.
The Predator. Yeah.
Them videos, I'm laughing because they really, really stick it to the guy. But even when you watch stuff like Cops back in the day when they used to do stings in like in the hotels and they would arrest a grown adult,
Right.
they would still stick it to the. I'm trying my hardest not to say that. So to the people buying sex,
Right.
they would really like stick it to them. Like they have this whole person on television. Like it's crazy.
Right. And it's about shaming
But they
them.
have a right to say because they commit a crime, do they not have a right to say I don't want to be on TV?
Right. Right.
Like that's I always wondered.
No, and that speaks to they have their human rights violated. You know, being a moment of your life that you're less than proud of, or we're doing in private for a reason, is suddenly blasted across the screen. And you know, there is law, and then there is this fake performative morality outrage, if I may, about sex work. And at the same time, how can you tell me that porn is $1 billion industry? Like, that's really healthy. If you want to know, it's really healthy numbers for that to be something so taboo and so like, so you're going to shame people, and shaming people actually won't lead them out of this. If that's what,
it's if anything,
things, like, you have to go further into it now, right?
Into addiction,
right?
The shame you into other things,
right?
So
if we have sex work as a crime and it becomes decriminalized, then we start opening people's minds to the power of their voice, and also that how free they really are. And that becomes dangerous to a caste system like the patriarchy, Christian evangelicalism, like all those things that are so high and inflammatory right now, as they should be.
if we're being honest. So that's something about decriminalizing sex work. Like, what would have to happen? An entire implosion of the systems and powers that be. Yeah. However, that does not mean it's impossible for us on a local level to make effective change towards this end.
Yeah, because I was just going to jump in and say that too. Like, sometimes when we have like this large, like, we don't want to, like, what we're saying is good, but to the viewers, like, sometimes like this large goal, it can be overwhelming and we don't get started. So like Pepper and Rev said, like, we could start on the local level and just, find whatever type of solution works for you. And, just go from there. And it'll be like we'll be on a frequency that'll be like rippling, and hopefully, it'll grow far.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
So you can see there's lots of layers to what can happen if we were to do this. Increase. So I did some references here. These are peer-reviewed references if anyone is interested. But then I just really wanted to thank everybody for hearing me out. If you've made it this far in this episode, thank you, because it means a lot to us. And I hope that this information is something you've perhaps not heard before, or you kind of heard before, and now you're interested in more information and getting out there to make change.
Yeah. So this episode is going to be a 2-part episode. So I just want to begin to just move into wrapping up part 1. And this was really good information, and definitely want to start to begin to talk about the solutions. So when we jump on here for part 2 episode, where's my file? Brittany always got some notes. I can't keep nothing in my head. I always got a notebook, a pen, or something.
Can I just give something to think about before you switch over?
We're not shutting down right now. We're still going to be a few minutes. Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but for me, I'm a simple man. All right, when it comes right down to it, I have a big vocabulary and all that other nonsense, but at the end of the day, I'm just a simple guy. And as far as I'm concerned, in order for a crime to be present, there also needs to be a victim. Okay. Yeah. And in many, I'll say, because I don't have any statistics or anything in front of me, but in many of these transactions between a man, a woman, a man, whoever is the person that is soliciting the service, it's just that. It's a service. Right. Okay. Yeah. There was no victim here. Everybody got what they came for. 2 satisfied parties. To me, that's a good business deal. And I don't understand why that's so hard to understand for people. I might not swing that way, or however we're saying that now. That's not my cup of tea. But hey, I can, in the next episode, maybe we'll talk about some of the benefits of prostitution.
Right.
Or
we can definitely talk about
prostitution. You know what I mean? Because I can think of
benefits of sex work.
Benefits of sex work. And benefits that are, something you can look back to. I mean, there are many.
I have some benefits of my own lived experience, let me tell you. But before we wrap it up, because we weren't going to wrap it up right in a second, I want to just say, I agree with you, Rev, because, like, for example, I don't want to really say his name because I don't know how they do his YouTube and his videos going, but this guy, y'all know who this guy is. This gangster guy we got over here, up at everybody is whatever over right now. Right. I grew up in Atlantic City, so his entourage, and not even just him, but just like the I swear I've been sitting at the bar hanging out with all the city officials, all these people, and they come there to have a good time. Right. And what happens is, like, the first, like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, I never stole. But then after a while, and I'm not justifying it, I should have never stole from anybody I stole from, but I never did that. But then after years went on, you keep getting arrested. You got all these fines and shit. You got all this stuff that's coming with this lifestyle. You keep going back and forth to jail. And then now the shame comes on. So now you popping e-pills, you in trouble with drugs. And then eventually you just like, you turn into a different person because my brain almost was like, man, fuck this shit. I'm gonna get all I can get from this. They shouldn't be out here doing this anyway. And because they have wife and kids, I used to make up whatever lie I needed to tell myself. Basically, like I was pimping myself. All of that stuff, that lies and stuff that you hear, because it's not accepted, and it turns into something else. But in the baseline of it, people come to find working girls at the casino bars to have a good time. And for the most part, people are not, for the most part, for me, a long time, myself and females that I used to be around a lot, very classy sex workers, were not stealing from nobody. Right. We were tipping everybody. It was a organization.
Safety allows that.
Safety allows that.
Yeah, like, you know, everybody was in a flow. But then you have and you're absolutely right, no crime was committed, because these police officers, I don't even know if I could think of what we used to call them, not derogatory, but whatever force they was for the girls or whatever. But they would literally come and things at the casino bar. Like they would literally be hanging out at the casino bar. Mm-hmm. Like they were guys who wanted to party. They were on a bachelor party or whatever. And set you up. Like, and there's no crime committed, but it's only a crime because prostitution is not legal. So that's the crime.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, you know, that's the crime. But is buying sex legal? So you in here trying to buy sex, but you faking it though.
Right.
And then the whole entrapment thing is never real. I don't care what nobody. The entrapment and the probable cause is not real to me. Yeah. they gotta have probable cause. That shit is not real to me. Because I've seen situations to where they just do what they want. So in my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they find a reason and it sticks. It sticks. Exactly. So yeah, we used to be like, oh, if you ask police, are they police? They have to tell you, no, they don't.
No, they don't.
They do, but they don't. So it's like they're committing crimes too.
They're allowed to lie in investigations as well.
Right.
Yep. They're allowed to lie to you flat out. They are allowed to lie to you in investigating a crime. Yeah, well, it's true.
Because we don't educate people.
Now, the FBI is where the cutoff is. They're allegedly not allowed to lie to you. And they don't have to, because usually by the time they're talking to you, they already know.
Yeah. So I'm gonna leave y'all with a cliffhanger to make sure y'all come back for episode 2, because people like drama. So they do like drama. They want to know that. I love y'all though. I love all of them. I don't like the way people the where I'm from community. I'll say that. I love where I'm from community and just all the people in my life. But the situation that I wanted to talk about really quickly, and then we're going to move into the benefits of it, and was when I probably was like 24, 25, and I was on probation for prostitution, and I think at that time, because once I got on probation, I had some ecstasy pills on me at that time too. That last time I got arrested. And I went to, I tried to take myself off the streets. I was banned out of all the casinos. So once you're banned out of the casino, you have to go out. That's another thing. See, if you legalize it, we can stay inside the casinos as long as we're not committing other crimes like harassment or anything like that. We're just, because I mean, everyone doesn't walk around like these documentaries that they create,
Right.
where the women are walking around in thongs and doing all of that. No shade, but in the casino, you're in a suit, a mink, something that you're blending in and you're looking good. Like, and if they legalized it, they decriminalized it, it would I lost my train of thought, but we're in the casino. Oh, it would keep you off the street, because then you wouldn't be getting kicked out these casinos. I literally would just get kicked out of the casino because it's not legal.
Right.
And
Right.
the security guard, most security guards, no matter what, they'll be jerks. Or if they got pressure on them, they'll be jerks. Or if you've been arrested by the real police before doing a sting, you can't come in there no more. You 86. Now, eventually, what we got to do, we're gonna go to the track and go outside. And now work girls who never been outside on the street, like myself and a few of us, all of us, now we outside working on the street corner, and then it escalates, because then when you start getting kicked off of there, or when you go out of state, now you at truck stops, just going everywhere now. So it's like literally, I can remember times where, because we couldn't go inside the casino, we had to work outside. Like, we had a whole serial killer in Atlantic City, killed 4 girls. And 1 week, 2 weeks later, we back outside on the same corner. Some of the people that I know, they had this guy who they thought was a serial killer. He probably was. They found him not guilty on a technicality, but he was somebody who was in people in phones. So like, these are females who used to just be inside the casino.
Right.
And then they started doing stuff like doing things through escort services.
Right.
Like, literally in our houses, and the escort service will call us to go somewhere. We're not outside stealing from nobody. We're not doing anything. And when you're going through an escort service, you're not doing criminal behavior. Right. Like, you're really just going to, because you don't want to, mess up your position with that escort service. They try to be as, classy as they could and keep good girls.
Right.
And they do things with the escort service people. Like, no crimes committed. The only crime is because it's not legal.
Right.
So it's like they wouldn't leave us alone. So I ended up in Pennsylvania because I was on probation and I had to just move around. So I went to this small town. There's like this thing, like if you go to small towns and you do like Backpage or Craigslist, I don't even know if these apps exist anymore. But whatever sex work apps, at the time it was Backpage and Craigslist. I went there, got a hotel room, was in my own hotel room, not bothering anybody, posted ads, and the guys would come to the rooms, and that's how that works. Well, I had a guy come who ultimately I was raped, and it was a violent situation. Like, it was a super violent situation. And I had another girl there with me, and she was downstairs, and she basically just, I don't know what, but I was left upstairs without no one to help me. And that situation lasted probably for like 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. And when I was done with that situation and I ran out, the guy left, I ran out the room fucked up, everything's all over the place. And I tell the girl, like, the guy just raped me. She's like all going crazy. Like, I should have came upstairs, this, that, and the other, whatever. And then the police came. And I just remember, because this is like over 10 years ago, but I just remember being, this was actually probably like 15 years ago. I remember being at the police station, and at the hospital, the police officer came there, and I ended up doing a rape kit. We were doing some back and forth about that with the rape kit people. When the police officer came, immediately he was a jerk. And then I became an asshole. And we were just doing the back and forth dance. And like, I was like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not talking to you. Like, because you don't come with empathy and compassion. You come with whatever that is. Right. So he was saying things to me like, why are you in my town doing this? Like, not even worried about the rape. Right. So ultimately, he went on to like have a discussion with my criminal history. And then he did a bunch of things after that. So we will talk about that in the second episode. We keep y'all. I can laugh about it now because it's kind of like deflecting off of like these feelings I got going on inside of me. So it's not funny, but because it's very sad, actually. Like, it's very, very sad. I'm just a little nervous talking about it. So that's why it's making me like laugh and be fidgety. So I'm just like, I don't think it's a funny situation. It's making me a little nervous talking about it. But we will finish up talking about that on the next episode. And then we're going to move into benefits of sex work and some solutions to help get it decriminalized. I actually do want to be a part of the solution because I think this will be good for me. So make sure y'all hit the like, subscribe, and share button, and hit the notification bell to be alerted when any new videos come out. And like I always try to tell you, I feel like we're all just trying to be out here doing the best that we can, and be kind to yourself, give yourself grace. And until next time, I love y'all. Bye.